Hi, Johnny.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Just
I see Caleb is on too. Hi, Caleb.
Yes, how's it going, Dave?
It's going well. Thank you.
Hey, sorry to surprise you. Caleb was fascinated to hear that we were talking and asked me if he could tag along.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
You
just
get
gonna
it
be a
what you
little.
pay
I'm
for.
gonna be a
So,
sponge. Yeah, I'm just gonna soak it all
okay. All
up.
right.
I just ate some beef jerky. Sorry, I have not eaten all day. I just stuffed my mouth like, let me see if I can get away with it. Man, I didn't get away with it. Um, Dave, are you okay with me recording this?
Yeah, sure.
We may, I have my newsletter. I think you actually get my newsletter.
I do.
There are components, or maybe even the whole video I might want to show to that group, which is about 300 publishers. So that's cool with you. We'll just continue.
Okay. I'll be on my best behavior.
Well, no, you don't have to do that because we can always cut stuff out. So, if you want to go buck wild and crazy, do that too. It's fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, I've got a little bit of just to give a little background. I wanted to talk with you because I'm working pretty hard right now to discover the way forward to thriving. Like everybody always talks about the transition that media is in, and I think it becomes like a broken record. But there aren't too many people that are just talking practically about what the most important priority steps are. And you strike me, in our conversations. And you're frozen at this point. Are you hearing me at all or no?
I do. Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, you can hear. Yeah, you can hear me. That's good. You're frozen on the image to me, but it could be my own
Okay.
internet issues. And so I've just spent a lot of time and made it a big part of my job to spend time with people that seem to have a part of the recipe for the future, and just draw it out of them for the benefit of myself to learn and to grow, and then also for publishers that I'm close with to benefit from that. So I really appreciate you being willing to just let me pick your brain. And you mind just giving a little bit of background about yourself, Dave, and then we'll be off to the races.
So I'm a longtime publisher in the business journal world. I started my company when I was 24 back in 1984, and started with the Central Penn Business Journal in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And then we made several acquisitions. We bought the NJ Biz, which is the business journal for the whole state of New Jersey. We bought Lehigh Valley Biz,
Yep.
business journal, which is in the Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area. We had a parenting publication. We had a video and digital division. And we also owned a national pet retailer magazine because I wanted to see if my way of doing publishing would work on a national level. And then the other claim to fame is we started the Best Companies Group, which is a research company that did all the research for the best places to work programs around the country. 7 years ago, I sold my company and walked away. The day I left, I still was passionate about the industry. I'm still passionate about it today. And when I left my company, we had about 150 employees doing about $22 million in sales.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, can you tell me a little bit? I have a couple. Actually, one quick question. Do you stay in touch with Peter Burke? I just talked with him the other day, actually.
Yep, I talk to Peter all the time.
Man, I love that guy. This was my first time actually getting to really interface with him probably 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I wish I had known this guy for a long time. It's a great dude.
He is. He knows his stuff about best places to work.
Absolutely does. Yep. Now I'm wondering, so what was the passion that brought you into the media space, or that you kind of followed through into that, having an entire career, and then the successes that you were able to see in developing a media organization? What would you say was the passion that led you into and through that?
I actually fell into it. So I came home from college, worked for a Fortune 250 company here in Harrisburg in marketing. I did not like working for a major corporation. It was very kind of stifling. And
Yeah.
I left there, which I kind of laugh about, to be a small business consultant, because I had an accounting degree and I was working in marketing, and I knew everything there was to know about being in business, which is
Mhm.
nothing. But one of the first clients that came along was a gentleman who had published 3 issues of a newspaper here in Harrisburg. It was a monthly then. And he said, I've lost all my money. I need to shut this down. How do I do it? And I said to him, well, I'll buy it from you. And my original plan was to own this publication, get my name known around town, and then sell it. And I'd have my name would be known as a business consultant. Well, I got into the business. I quickly learned that I bought it for $5,000, and I spent
Whoa.
$5,000 too much, because it
Oh
was
man.
it was a mess. But then, years later, I said it was the best $5,000 I ever spent, because it was my life's work, and I loved it till the day I walked out the door. But it's a great industry, and in the business journal world, we still have lots of opportunity, lots of profit,
Yeah.
if done correctly. We're not the daily news business. We're in a niche that is thriving and will continue to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. And the do it correctly piece was the reason I actually wanted to sit down and talk with you, because
Okay.
it sounds like you have a formula, and you described it as simple to me. And I said, oh, this man has a simple formula. I need to listen carefully to what you're saying, because somebody, yeah, go ahead.
And that's the key word. It's a very formulaic business. If you understand the metrics, and how the business journal world makes its money, and then you look at different pieces of that business, we took our model in Harrisburg, we used the same model in New Jersey, and turned that publication around, and then we used that model in Lehigh Valley. Both those publications were underperforming and were at a loss, and we turned them around using the same formula in all 3 markets.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Caleb, who is on the call with us, Caleb's my operations director. He's going to have probably more tactical questions. He's
Okay.
really that's his gift, is really the turning vision into plans and then into action, and creating. And mine is much more the visionary, big picture kind of connector piece. So I'm just letting you, Caleb, you have permission, buddy, to interrupt at any point or to ask
All
questions
right.
that you
Thank
want to
you.
ask. Yeah, but that gives, so I'm going to take it back a step, because over the last really probably 10 years, I mean, I remember I've been through 2 recessions in this industry at this point. The first one was in like 2008, right? You remember that one?
Yep.
Dave? Like yeah. And then the more recent one that's kind of more associated to COVID. But the media publishing industry as a whole has been in a lot of duress and a lot of struggle. So what would you say, like the formula that you're describing, why does it work in an industry that's seeing so much decline at this point? Like, what, you get what I'm saying? Like, how do you account for that?
So a regional business publication has a definite advantage, because, and I'll tell you a story. In all 3 of our markets where we had a business journal, the biggest compliment that we heard in all 3 of those markets were people would come to me and say, Dave, you're the Chamber of Commerce here. You provide us our news. You provide us a vehicle to market our product. You provide a vehicle that we can identify customers. And you also, through your awards events and your symposiums, get us together in a networking situation, and you honor us with the different awards that you have. You are the real chamber in this market.
Yeah.
And I used to tell our associates that worked with me and for me in each of our markets, we're not, our mission and I'll use the term, our why is not, we're a newspaper. Our why is we are helping regional businesses make a profit so that they can pay their employees. So what we are is we are an economic engine for the region. And no one else can do what a business journal can do. You know, yeah, what about Facebook? What about LinkedIn? What about all these other things? Well, we have boots on the street to get the information. We know the players in the market, and we know what to do to serve them. And if you do it right, and your company's culture is entrepreneurial, you can move on a dime to supply whatever products are needed for that market. The other good thing is, I belong to AABP. Almost for the full 32 years I was in business. We're a very sharing industry, and I could take an idea from Chicago or Los Angeles, which was 5 times the size of my market, and I could bring that same idea and restructure it and do it in my market. So I always said I never had an original idea in my life. I always stole ideas from markets around the country and brought them home. And I did have a couple original ideas, but it's a very entrepreneurial industry that if you understand your mission and know your market, you can make profit.
Yes. Yep. And there's that key word there, entrepreneurial, which actually takes me to the question I was going to ask prior to this. Even what you just described, which is what is the core of a B2B or a business journal publisher? Like, what is the core? Because I've been asking that question of my city regional magazines. I've been asking it of the business journals and the community newspapers. Like, if you were to take your organization and tear it open and find the heart inside, what is that heart? And I think you're actually angling towards that in just the way that you described what you said. Like, we are seen as the Chamber of Commerce. We are here as an economic engine. I don't hear people using language like that, but that's amazing language. You live and die by how well you can help businesses become more profitable. That's something else that you said. So then could you articulate that and distill it down? What is the heart? What would you say is the beating heart of the local B2B publisher?
Excellent question. I think the beating heart is knowing that you are vital to that business economy in the region.
Yeah.
And understanding your position and what you're able to provide between the news side and the marketing opportunity side for local businesses, that's key.
Yeah. Yep. So when I asked that question, so you said knowing that you are vital to the business economy of that particular region. So I'm gonna circle vitality, knowing that you're vital to the businesses. In other words, you're central. In other words, you're essential. You're not a commodity at that point. Like, the business community recognizes your authority. And when I did ask this question in a group of some of my favorite people the other day, the Media Data Collaborative, the answer angled towards, I said, well, what are you? And they said, trust, authority, connectedness. Like, it was all angling towards what you just said, which is kind of this idea of being a vital and essential part of the community that you're trying to serve, and a catalyst of the community that you're trying to serve. Right? Am I saying
Catalyst,
right? I'm speaking.
Catalyst. No, you're saying absolutely right. Catalyst is exactly right. And it doesn't matter if you're a business journal or a city regional magazine or I forget the other paper that industry you mentioned there. If you understand that, and then ask yourself, all right, what's the most important thing I can supply to that reader in that community, and ingratiate yourself into that community, you got it.
All right. So then the question is, how do you translate that into revenue? Right? Because I think that's where the disconnect is happening. Right? Like, there's 2 problems to solve. And I've watched in the media publishing industry, these 2 problems kind of war against each other. One problem is, how do I become essential? Right? How do I become vital? How do I become a catalyst? in my community, which I think is actually the harder problem to solve. And I think I see a lot more success in solving that problem, right? Like capturing and becoming the authority in the community. The other problem, which I see where the failure happens often, is how do I monetize that, right?
Mhm.
Like how do I turn that into enough revenue to support an organization and to be profitable and thriving? So how do you bridge that gap?
So we always, well, let me take a step back. So when we started the publication, um, or when we did the turnarounds of the other two publications, we looked at our editorial product first. Were we
Yeah.
supplying good information that they couldn't get anywhere else? You know, most of the daily newspapers in these markets, you don't even compete with them because they've totally blown up their editorial department, that they're not even having boots on the ground in the business community.
Yep.
Um, so the key there is spend a little bit of money on your editorial product. Don't just be running news releases. Get the news that no one else is getting, and you don't have to have a large editorial department, but understand the market and be out there so that you're printing, and not only on the print product but on the digital product, information that people are going to go, oh, I didn't know that.
Mm.
We preached in our markets the power of three. And, obviously back when I started in 1984, you had print, that was it. But the power of three is all about, you have your print products, you have your digital products, mostly email newsletters, and you have your events. That's a three-legged stool, and you've got to have the product mix so that your advertising clients can reach and spend in all three of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's three totally different audiences. There is, three circles that overlap a little bit, so that there is a little bit of a shared audience. But as you know, not everybody reads the print, not everybody reads the digital, and not everybody goes to the events. So you've got
Yeah.
to be in all three places these days to be out there. Events are
Yep.
really killing it right now because, with our new normal, which is everybody's working at home, people still want to go out and shake hands with their customer and
Mm-hmm.
spend time with them. So events is really doing well in the business journal world, and digital, as people, the client we're serving with our business journals is in the C-suite. They don't have time during the day to read lengthy emails and that kind of thing. That's why they like our digital emails that
Yep.
go out with the quick news. Quick headline, 2 or 3 sentences. That's all you need to do. So again, we're supplying them with information on the local level that they can't get anywhere else. Yeah, they can get all kinds of national business news, but that's not what they want. They want to know what's going on with their customers, their prospective customers in that market.
Right. Yeah. And so you're even tailoring. I can even hear the way that you talk instinctively is you're tailoring the organization towards the interest of that C-suite individual, right? There are other people in the
Right.
market that'll probably pay attention, but you're trying to capture that C-suite person whose attention is actually quite difficult to capture.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
which is
C-suite and the local business owner, who is,
yeah,
they're the CEO, but it might be the CEO of a 15-person company or 20-person company, but they're still the main person.
yeah. So I've got to ask then. So the power of three. How have you re-envisioned that, or how has that changed since kind of the advent of when you entered into the publishing world? Like does that formula just stay the same? It can't have stayed exactly the same. So
No,
how do you? Yeah, how has it shifted,
you
and how
know,
will it shift?
it will continue to shift. Back in 1984, we were still setting it out to a typesetter, and then it would come back, and we'd wax up boards. So I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Apple computer came along, which changed a lot of things, and then we evolved from a monthly print to a bi-weekly, and then we went weekly in Harrisburg before we started acquiring those other business journals. Then came the fax machine, and we stole an idea from Connie Weimer in Des Moines. We took the top 500 CEOs in the region, and we created a fax newsletter that went out every day at noon on the fax.
Wow.
And we sold ads on that, which is then when email came out, we no longer did the fax, but then we did the daily email newsletter. And with that, we started with one, and then we did one in the morning, one at noon, and one at the end of the day, as well as we did one on a weekly basis for real estate news, one for construction news, one for banking news. So that really blew up overnight for us. And then with the addition of the events, that's the third part of the power of three. We just had the right formula in that, we created these events that kind of played to the business owner's ego, whether it was 40 under 40, with looking at their young employees, or it was business of the year or CFO of the year, or we created the first best places to work in Pennsylvania program, which led us into creating our research company. So it's just a matter of evolving all the time.
Yes. Yep. And I think that is where the difficulty lies, because in order to do that, you have to have that entrepreneurial spirit in your core, which I think many do, and some don't. So what would you say? How do you think the role of print is changing and will change? And let me give you a little background on that question. Getting different thoughts from different people, and all people that I respect and trust, on the changing role of print within that power of three model that you're describing. There are at this point publishers. What I think we're going to see more of, and again, I don't want to poison the well, but what I think we're going to see more of is, there are places where print is very strong, but there's also the need for digital complement in those markets, right? Like where print is strong. But we are also seeing that there are some publishers who are beginning to not just beginning, this has been going on for many years, but that are digital only and providing the same function within that market. So like, for example, an Aaron Kramer over Richmond Biz Sense and Business Den, like he in Richmond, there is no printed business journal. The business news is being captured totally by the digital and events legs of the stool by a person like Aaron Kramer. Now, I say this knowing that it can create trepidation in some people, but I'm thinking, let's just face it and look at it. And what do you think about the long-term implications of print? Because I have other people who are very pumped about the way that print and digital can complement each other, actually, and that you can enhance your digital through your print and enhance your print through your digital, and see that as a long-term solution. What do you see? So
I think it gets back to the reader and how they like to utilize the information. Some people find it very hard to navigate a story or a group of stories on the digital side. It in one way, it allows them to skim and go through it fast, but in another way, it doesn't really do justice to some of the stories that the Business Journal likes to run. I think, again, our reader, who is a very busy person, they've just spent, they're not reading your publication at work. They've just spent a very busy day putting out fires all day at their company. Excuse me. That Business Journal is consumed at home when they have time to sit down and really devour it and see what's going on in the market. Yeah, they're looking at the email newsletters during the day because we know what open rates are. And the open rates on those digital email newsletters are very good, but that's because they're short snippets. What we deliver in the Business Journal world is, I'm a small company and I want to know how somebody else is making money. I want to know how they, what their failures were, so I don't make the same kind of failures. I want
Yes.
to have in my business journal personalities that I could call up Dave Smith down the street and say, "Hey, I saw your article in the Business Journal that I just read word for word. I have a few questions for you. Can you help me?" You know, it, it,
Yes.
it all gets back to how you're supplying that. So understanding how your reader intakes that information and what their day is like structurally. That's where the digital's good. Give me the quick and down and dirty, and then give me the business journal that I can really understand other things in the market. The
Yes.
other thing is, what you do and how you make your living with book of lists.
Mm-hmm.
That we all know how people use that book of lists. That's not something you can do, at least from my own experience. I
Yep.
need to really study that list, who's doing what, that kind of thing. It's a little harder
Yep.
to do digitally, even though we sell it digitally. Again, that's another thing that you have in print.
That's interesting. You're speaking. It's funny because you're helping me tie something in from my own life into this conversation. So, I work for a remote company. We're on Zoom all the time. Technology company. I'm online all the time. I sit in front of a screen all day, but I have a planner that I use that helps me keep my life in order, and that's paper, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all paper, because I need to be able to see the whole thing at a glance. I need to be able to hold the whole thing in my hands and flip to a date or flip back from a date or whatever. And I couldn't probably have articulated to you the reason before this moment, because it is kind of foggy in my mind. Why do I need this huge binder? My wife calls this is funny. My wife calls my binder my black wife. So I got a black binder. Which my wife is black, but she still thinks it's funny to call it my black wife. So, but it's there is the thing you can't do in digital is actually get your head around the full product. Like you're describing book of lists, like flipping through pages to compare, right? Flipping through pages. And so there just is a place. There is a place for that. I hear what you're saying. And I also heard you say that the reader is king. It sounds like you've got to give content to your reader the way that your reader wants it. And
so,
right.
Yep. I used to really work hard. So as the owner of my company and CEO, I spent 90% of my time focused on sales. But I had an understanding with my editors who we had to have consensus on understanding our editorial direction. And it was always interesting when we had a new hire who didn't come from a business background, getting them to understand what our reader's day was like and what our reader needed to know. They wanted to do Pulitzer Prize winning articles on stuff that really most CEOs didn't care about.
Yeah.
Even today, you read these articles, pets in the workplace. Well, guess what? I'm focused on profit. Yeah, I'm all about it. And we had a great culture. Our employees love working for us. But as CEO, I don't have time to read a full-length article on pets in the workplace.
Yeah.
Again, understand your reader's day. And like I said, most CEOs are their schedule's jammed, and they're putting out fires and they're dealing with employee issues. Let's give them a product that can help them make their life easier, find more sales in the market, that kind of thing. But they're not going to read stuff they don't care about. So it's getting your editorial folks to understand get inside that business owner's head and understand their day.
Oh man. So in the newsletter world, and I'm actually really doing a lot of deep dive right now in the e-newsletter world, treating that as a business in its own right, and trying to find out what the potential profitability is there, because I think it has a lot of application there's a lot of room, I think, for specifically even business journal publishers to focus in more on that particular area of business. And they call that product market fit. So basically the fact that you're speaking a language that delights your reader, and that's your only job, right?
Only.
Like, yeah, like that if your reader's the CEO, you better be saying things that the CEO cares about.
Right.
Or you're completely dead in the water because you don't have product market fit. So so I love hearing things. I just read this article the other day, and I love hearing things reaffirmed in conversation because they become more concrete for me. So I love that. I love that perspective. I'm gonna ask Kayla, but you've been listening to this whole thing, and I would love to get your perspective or any questions or comments that you have as we continue.
Yeah, my big question was, that one that you asked, which is how do you become vital to the economy in the region? And I definitely see editorial as part of it. But I think as we start to move into more of a data-driven world, like the editorial part is good, right? And there's definitely stories that CEOs focus on that they care about as far as editorial goes. But there's also unique actionable data at the local level that helps, I think, kind of fuel the decisions that CEOs make.
Yep.
So aside from the editorial, do you see what are the places or the sources of data that you see as most influential or most valuable for CEOs? Like you mentioned Book of Lists as one. What would be some other examples of that?
So, housing starts. What's the construction industry doing there? Healthcare. What's the new things coming forward in healthcare? Because that relates in a region that relates to so many other things like construction and law and those type of things. So you've got to have the data there that says the local economic data, because once again, nobody else is publishing that for these folks. So if you can tie into some of that regional economic data and utilize that, I'll go back to when Obamacare was just being talked about, and they passed it in Congress. We said, you know what, we got to do something about this, and we got our senator, our Pennsylvania senator, back then it was Senator Specter. 2 weeks out, we called him and said, hey, we need to understand this better. Can you come in and talk to the business community about your understanding of Obamacare? We had 500 people in a room in 2 weeks come to do that.
Wow.
Wow. It's so staying on the market that way, but then with the data, that's a national subject, but what are some of the local things that are playing into that? Central Pennsylvania right now, we're to the north, or I'm sorry, to the south of Harrisburg is a very large agricultural region that depends on immigrant workforce. They look for information on how to deal with labor shortages, how to deal with labor requirements, all that kind of thing. That's data that you can be supplying that sector. If I were in business right now, I'd be doing a special publication on that and selling advertising around it to get that data out there. Right. There's still worker shortages, but
lose somebody.
Oh, you still there? Can you hear me?
Just stay back. Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay.
I think I'm like that, but go ahead. Yep.
We did a data book back in the early 2000s about we were losing our regional banking leadership. They were taking that to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and we lost one or two Fortune 500 companies here. And we did an analysis and data on what's our future look like in the Harrisburg region on where are the jobs going to be, where are the opportunities going to be, and that was all data driven too. So there's opportunities to utilize data that no one else is bringing that data together. So once again, you have an opportunity to not only give the data but sell advertising around that data.
Yep. Yeah, and I love your relentless focus. And I think, I mean, if there's something for me and Caleb to learn here, which I think we are learning, but it's this idea of relentless focus on your, I don't know if ideal client is the right, we're not talking about ideal client. You're talking about your audience persona, right? Like your relentless focus on bringing value to your audience, which means you're getting narrow enough that you're cutting off some options for yourself for the sake of preserving the option. So that just really resonates with me, and I appreciate that question, Caleb. That's about the specific data products, and I want to actually broaden that out. So usually, what I'm seeing across the different industries, like if you're a city regional magazine, you probably make most of your money, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of the 80. Have you heard of the Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule?
Yep.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
And so, how 20% or 80% of your results come from often 20% of your efforts, et cetera, et cetera. You can apply that a lot of different ways. But I just wonder, what are the 20% of business journal products that give 80% of the impact? And it might not be 20-80, it might not be that pronounced, but for example, city regional magazine, if you're a city regional magazine, you're making most of your money or a big chunk of your money in a year on faces, on top doctors, and on best of the city. Your best of product.
Right.
Those three you are bankrolling most of what you do, as far as I can tell. With the business journal, I know Book of Lists is one. I think probably your best workplaces might be another. But I'd love to hear your breakdown of what you think those 20% are.
So I don't really have a 20% because I told you our business was very formulaic. We also had a very strong cost accounting system that I knew down to the product what was making me money and what wasn't making me money. I knew every little product had an overhead allocation and had a labor allocation that we knew. And then every year we'd look, when we're starting to plan for the upcoming year, we'd look at, all right, what are we getting rid of? And then what are we going to do new? We made sure, a lot of publishers say, oh, first quarter, that's our worst quarter. We focused on, all right, what can we do in first quarter to make that one of our better quarters or equal to the other quarters? So we didn't really have a handful of products that carried our year. Yes, we did really well on Book of Lists, but we focused per product to make sure we were making a profit on every product. And if we weren't, we got rid of the ones that were dogs.
Yeah. No,
so like a follow-up question to that, what are some of the products that you did that you saw success that you don't see other people doing that you feel like maybe they should at least give a try?
So the best places to work one took off. There are some markets who said, oh, we didn't do well with that because they couldn't find the right partners in that. So there's opportunity there. Some markets say, oh, we don't want to do too many awards programs because people are going to say that's all we do. Well, those markets have to remember the same people that come to your 40 under 40 awards aren't the same people that go to the Business of the Year awards with those nominees. So it's a different audience every time. Some of my, people, our customers and stuff would joke with me and say, hey, Dave, when are you going to do 80 over 80? We probably could have, so there's a fear that, oh, we're going to saturate our market with too many awards things, or we're going to saturate our market with symposiums. No, on the event site, it's not going to do that. On the digital side, I'm working with a publication right now who they used to do a digital, an e-news product once a week. I said, you're missing the boat there. You need to do that 5 times a week, 3 times a day. Well, that just scared the death out of them because they're like, oh my God, how are we going to do that? but they're missing an opportunity because, again, nobody in that market is sharing with them. So, there's a nervousness. And you mentioned in the city regionals, the faces thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The hot button right now among business journals is the Power 100 or the Power 250, which is, 100 of the top faces in that market. It's a book everybody's going to read. Am I in it? And if I'm not in it, who's in it? Things like that are going to pop up all the time.
Oh yeah. Those are
Does
strong.
that answer your question, Caleb?
It does, yeah. And I love the answer because, like, I know that, like, we're in the business of creating data products, but I'm thinking about this whole conversation through the lens of the publisher. And I think if you're focused on advertisers, right, it does seem like you could do too many awards because you're like saturating the market. But if you're thinking about the reader, the end business person, you're right. They are different audiences. There are different people who care about those things. And if that's who you're ultimately trying to serve, that like comes through in the products too. So yeah, that's really good.
And this idea just popped in my head just now. Is there a product that I can charge my readers $250 a year that they'll get a data set once a week on the local market that will include 10 bullet points that I want to know about our market? And I'll give it to you, but you're going to pay for it, as opposed to the free email, the free e-newsletters. There's a model. Have you heard about the Australian model?
Yep, Western Australia.
Elton Schwartz. He's done a phenomenal job on the data side on figuring out how to get people to pay him money for data.
Yep. Yeah, he's a killer. And the difficulty in translation is that a lot of the data that they're using over there is public. And so what's private company kind of hidden data here is actually public data over there, which means he has this incredible data set to work with to begin. And the thing that he's done that is incredible and noteworthy is he's begun to take that and create insight for his reader because it's not the data itself, it's the interpretation of the data and the storytelling of the data and the conclusions, the profitable conclusions that can be drawn from the data. To your point, Dave, that are what that profit-driven CEO cares about. Right. Like, I don't want to wade through spreadsheets. I want you to tell me what the spreadsheets are telling you. Right.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So your point, I love that idea. Like I just wrote down insights, as the name for a product like that, like a product that gives people, that uses data to drive insight in a market, and that prides itself on finding that insight use on a weekly or a daily basis, right? To justify fee. I love that.
Years ago, I want to say in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a gentleman that we subcontracted with who did a book for us on the top 200 businesses in our market. And he researched the heck out of them. It was kind of like taking your book of lists, but blowing it up so that each business had a page which explained their products. It explained their executive team. If we could get sales numbers, we put that in there and everything. That was good for us for a couple years. But I wonder what does that look like now on blowing up the book of lists even bigger and giving me more information on a certain sector,
Oh yeah. Like, even as you say that, the question that pops into my mind that the business owner wants to know is, why is this company winning, right? Why are you winning? What is it about you? What is it about you that I can model or incorporate so that I can be winning like you're winning?
Right.
And getting them to share those secrets, right? Getting them to share those secrets in creating a safe environment for them to do that is the trick. I mean, it's so much of the trick is not abusing that trust, right?
Yeah.
This is such good stuff, Dave. Man, I don't know. This is the most educational conversation I've had in a while. especially in this particular realm. Now, let me ask you this question, unless Caleb has something. Caleb, I want to make room for you.
Go for
it. Is there a particular book that you recommend somebody who's trying to really thrive as a business, as a local business publisher? Is there a particular book that you put in their hands?
No. What I say so the number one thing I've said over the years to people who call me and say, Dave, I'm struggling. What do I do? This is what I say to them. Get out of your market and go visit another market. Go find somebody who's doing it right and shadow them for a day or two. When I started my business journal, I was poorer than poor. I would scrape money together, and every couple of months I'd go somewhere and just sit down with somebody who had a whole lot more experience than I did. And business owners, they love to talk about their business. So I'd walk away with ideas. I'd walk away with new product ideas. I'd walk away with how to structure my accounting department, how to drive my culture, how to be a good leader, all based on talking to somebody who's already done it.
Yeah.
That was the number one thing. The number two thing is you should be a member of an association like AABP. That was number two. And number three is, find out the metrics of your industry. Meaning, Johnny, I'm involved with Woodward as a director, and I'm helping them turn around 2 publications right now.
Yep.
The first thing I did when I went in there is to understand the metrics of what they were doing and what pieces they needed to change to make it to look at how do I get this profitable in this size market. So, with 32 years experience, I know how many publications you should be printing as far as your print run. I know how to structure a sales staff. What's your product listing? How do you hold your salespeople accountable? What's your rate card look like? And then what's your editorial content? And how did you put together your editorial calendar for the year? Those are all the kind of things you need to learn to get your publication profitable and desirable in a market.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna tell you back what I hear, because I asked you the question, favorite book, or is there a particular book? And I love your answer to the question, because you get at the same issue, but you just go a different direction, right? Like I have personally learned from books and from mentors in my life.
And I do too. I read a lot of, as you know, we've talked about this before. I read a lot of books even now, and I'm not even in business. But that is important. But as far as industry specific, there isn't one book out there industry specific.
There isn't, no, because the niches is so niche in itself. And so, but you're giving people a mechanism to get to the same thing, which is advice from a wise mentor. And you're saying, go find someone who's successful and ask them to shadow them, right? Ask them for some mentorship, and they're likely to give it to you, because people who are successful tend to be passionate about what they do and tend to want to share the secrets of their success, which is what you're doing with us, right? Like you don't get anything for this except the joy of helping us out and helping out the people that watch this. And so
I'll tell you one quick story. So I don't know if you ever heard the name Don Richards. He was an icon in our early industry. He was the publisher of the Milwaukee Business Journal. He has since passed away, but I started when I was 24. I think I was 25 or 26. I got up the nerve to call this guy, and I had only met him once at a conference, and everybody was like, "Oh, Don Richards," and bowed to him. I called him and I said, Don, can I have 15 minutes of your time on the telephone? He said to me, Dave, no, I want you to come out here and I want you to shadow me for 3 days. And I was like, oh my God, that is awesome. He gave me a 3-day tutorial on what I needed to do as a young publisher starting out. And one of the things I still remember to this day is I think at that time I had 3 or 4 salespeople on staff, and I said to him, Don, they're driving me crazy. They just keep asking me and wanting stuff, and I don't know what to do. It's so frustrating. And he said, Dave, if they're making you frustrated and they're not taking no for an answer from you, imagine what they're doing to your customer. You want those people to be out there asking and asking and asking and pushing and pushing and pushing. That's when I fell in love with salespeople from that day on, just by that little piece of advice.
Yeah. Yep. Life-changing piece of advice. So, so I'm going to throw this out there. I know that you are open to taking on new consulting clients on a case-by-case basis. Yes, I can say that. Is that okay for me to say?
I am. I will tell you, I have my first grandchild who's 3 weeks old. So that's my first priority, but I am willing to take a little bit more on.
Okay. And so can you describe like what would your process look like? So I'm a publisher who's listened to this, and I've thought, okay, this is what I need. I need to shadow Dave for 3 days. I want Dave to be my Don Richards, right? What would it look like? What would an engagement with you look like in those early beginning stages, if you don't mind sharing?
And this is probably typical. I would have a list of things I would want you to send me that I could look over. And then I'd come spend a day with you in your market, and we would review those things that I reviewed. And I would impart the metric piece of the business and help that person understand, here are the must-dos that you need to do based on what I've seen in your business. And here's the things you need to think about.
Yeah.
And I'd share some of the, forms and that kind of stuff that we used, but more importantly, those things I rattled off before, I'd look at those, and then we'd work from those metrics.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. And that paints the picture. Man, I don't even know how to express my gratitude for you taking this hour out of your life to give us some of the background and just give us some strategy for how to help our clients become more successful, which is the ultimate goal. So really appreciate you, Dave.
As I said in the beginning, you get what you paid for. I'm Johnny. I'm happy to answer questions for you anytime that I can be helpful. I love the business, and you can see how it gets me fired up talking about it. So I'm always happy to take an opportunity to do that.
All right. Well, I do hope to point some people your direction because I know they would be extremely well taken care of. So
okay.
So thanks again, and I'm ready. I'm ready to break when you are. And let Caleb, you got the final word, and then you can dismiss us.
No, thank you so much, Dave. This is great. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Just like, we've got like, I feel like I'm drenched in information. Like I don't even know which direction to go. I just need to go back through and like review some notes and kind of absorb it a little more. But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, nice of you to say that, and please tell my friend Elaine I said hello.
Will do.
Okay. We will let her know. She will be happy to hear it. All right. You
tell her I miss her.
We'll tell her that. You want to make her cry? We'll make her cry if you want.
All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was helpful for you.
Super helpful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Good, bro. You have no idea. So good. We haven't had this conversation. Me and Caleb have never had this conversation before. And I don't know what will come out of it because, things that you take for granted are things that we don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's very useful.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right. See ya.